Hi, everybody. Derek Sloan here. I have a really exciting story to share today and two great guests. One is Detective Helen Grus. She's been a police officer for 23 years with the Ottawa Police Service. Is her current employer. Also, her lawyer, Bathsheba Vandenberg from Alberta. Um, Helen, you have a remarkable story. You started an investigation in January of 2022 and you got in trouble for that investigation. You were asking some questions about an increase in infant deaths, sudden infant deaths, and you just got penalized for that. You got suspended for about 9 months. You've been in a disciplinary process since that time. Um, can you tell us a little bit about your story, what you did, and why they charged you with misconduct?
Good morning. Yes, I can clarify a few of those things and explain. From 2016, I was a detective in the Ottawa Police Service Sexual Assault and Child Abuse Unit, which investigates just that, all sexual assaults and also child abuse and any sudden unexplained child infant deaths under 5 years of age. So, January 2022, after the rollout of the COVID mRNA shots, a fellow colleague came to me saying, I don't know what's going on, but we've had a doubling, tripling of baby deaths in Saca. And clearly that concerned me as it did this officer as well. Later that week, January 13th, 2022, I had a town hall meeting coming up with Chief Slowly, Deputy Chief Ferguson, and Ottawa Police Health and Safety and Legal. And that meeting was set up for the vaccine mandates that were coming down on January 31st, 2022. However, because this was such a doubling of tripling of baby deaths is significant. One baby death is sad. So it was on my mind. So 2 days later, just before we had this town hall meeting, I actually went into RMS to access the reports to see if that statistic was true. Information going into that, I had that there were typically 2 or 3 SUDI deaths annually that Ottawa Police Service investigated. This is just very focused to our service. And after I queried the RMS records, it did in fact show that 2021, there was an increase in SUDI deaths, which there were 7 cases. I had to go through it because I wanted to weed out any cases that were not potentially relevant. We see infant deaths that may be due to drowning or choking or smothering. So I wanted to ensure that I was not counting those cases into this statistic, which I wasn't. I had actually taken out any number. I didn't have to. So because they weren't there that year. So I saw that in fact we did have a tripling of SUDI cases in 2021 over the year past 2020. So at this town hall with the chief and the executive, I mentioned that. I said, this is something very concerning that we're seeing. And I was very clear to say, I do not know what caused this increase. There is one variable that we've seen, COVID and the mRNA vaccines that were rolled out in 2020, but I'm not at liberty to say at this time. So that was the first part of what happened. While I was in those reports, very briefly, keep in mind, because I was just deciphering whether or not that case would be relevant to the increase or not. But I saw that one case had been concluded without the investigator ever reviewing the preliminary autopsy results or the autopsy itself. That was concerning because that case was closed. And for me as a detective, as a seasoned detective, you don't close cases off without consulting with the coroner and receiving the autopsy results to ensure that there in fact is nothing suspicious. That was one case. The next week, I was listening to a podcast, actually the Toronto Public Health meeting where Dan Hartman spoke. And in this meeting, he spoke about his son, Sean Hartman, who after receiving the Pfizer vaccine, within a month, they found him dead. And the autopsy results for that showed that he had myocarditis and enlarged heart. That brought me back to one of those baby cases that at Ottawa Police Service that also died with an autopsy found there was an enlarged heart. So I called that detective that had that case. And I asked that detective, I said, do you know if the mother received the COVID-19 vaccine? He said, I don't know. I didn't ask. Why? And I said, well, because doctors, pathologists, coroners, they are looking into to see, they want to know if there's ever a link. Well, I didn't check. And that was it. The conversation was done. He was very dismissive. So that case rested on my heart. And as I was driving home from work the one day, I realized two of these babies actually had died in a very similar fashion that I, as a police officer of 20 years, have never seen. The parent picked these healthy babies up to feed them, and they collapsed and died in their arms. And that sent shivers down my spine because I have never seen that as a police officer. So it rested on my mind. I followed up with the concluded investigation that had no autopsy results. I actually looked into it a few more times. And then I called our forensic section to ask. I said, do you know if that autopsy result will even be in the preliminary? They said, well, check with the coroners. We ended up CCing that sergeant emailed me and the lead detective to say, if you need the preliminary autopsy results, this is how you can obtain them. I left it at that because they were aware now that they were missing. And a few days later, I saw that they had, in fact, been attached. And the baby with the enlarged heart, that was resting on my mind. So January 31st, 2022, the day before I was going to be sent home on leave without pay, I took the phone and I called the parents of the one baby where there were unanswered questions. And I spoke with the father. It was a very short, cordial conversation, and he answered the question. It put me at ease. His answer actually put me at ease, and that was it. And then I was sent home on leave without pay on February 1st, 2022. That was all Ottawa Police Service members, civilian and sworn, who either didn't disclose their status or were not considered fully vaccinated. We were sent home on leave without pay. 3 days later, I get a phone call that I'm suspended for accessing RMS records and for allegedly, for personal reasons, which when I spoke with the sergeant who called me, Sergeant, about that, I said, no, I was accessing those RMS reports because I was bringing statistics to our executive. We had a meeting on January 13th, 2022, and it's even in my notebook, and I took notes that date. So I made it very clear that it was not for personal reasons. I had not, they also made allegations that I printed off coroner reports, which I absolutely had not done. I had not contacted the coroners. I had not printed any reports. All the information that I obtained the month of January 2022, and even prior to that, I've always been very professional. I never breached privacy. Absolutely not. And that led me to be suspended in 2022.
And so, we were speaking about this a little bit before. How common is it for police officers to access records in the course of their job?
In the course of our job, officers, we access records every day, multiple times. The records management system, there are records where we put in information of any call or interaction we have with anybody. And they're used for several purposes. Number one, to investigate. That's where when we're looking for linkages between cases, a red car was used in this robbery, a hammer was used there. We actually can query through the database to pull all these reports and see if there's linkages. Further, even as a rookie, I was taught by senior officers saying, in downtime, if there's, if you're on night shift and everybody's sleeping and you think you have nothing to do, read through RMS. Learn from other officers' reports, trends that are happening. It's a learning education tool as well. So investigative tool, educational tool. It's used and accessed repeatedly every day. We wouldn't be able to do the police work we do without accessing that system.
Bathsheba, can you give me your maybe legal understanding of what's going on and try to explain this case? Why are they going after Helen for doing her job, looking at some records, asking some questions? Can you explain what you think is happening here?
Well, from a legal point of view, there isn't any explanation. Misconduct charges are for negligence. And what Detective Grus did was fulfilling her duty to protect the public and to preserve life. She had, and we all all of us, who care about why these babies died are concerned for public safety. And I just want to sort of package a little bit about what Detective Grus stated there from a legal ramification perspective is that May 2021, NACI, the National Advisory Committee, recommended that the COVID Pfizer 19 vaccines were COVID Pfizer vaccines, that they were safe and effective for pregnant and breastfeeding women. And when I looked at the evidence on the record of the disciplinary proceedings, I did see that from the 9 months of May 2021 to January 2022, there was a tripling of sudden unexpected baby deaths, and that the circumstances that those babies died in are similar or identical to the adverse effects of the Pfizer vaccines. And when I say adverse effects of the Pfizer vaccines, this is from Pfizer's own clinical data. And that Pfizer's own clinical data reveals that they were not tested on pregnant and breastfeeding women. So there's no way that public officials in Canada could say that they were safe and effective for pregnant and breastfeeding women. And not only that, but Pfizer's own clinical data revealed that the women that did fall pregnant throughout the trial, that there's 274 women, and that they followed up with 32 women, and that all bar one baby died. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to draw the inference that these Pfizer COVID-19 vaccinations or certain vials killed these babies. And then we go back to what Detective Helen Grus was witnessing. She was witnessing the two babies who died suddenly in mother's arms. A baby girl with an enlarged heart in December of 2021. And then in January of 2022, another baby dies limp in mother's arm. And that just does not happen. And the circumstances of death are identical or similar to those listed as an adverse effect of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccination. That should ring alarm bells to everyone. And so from a legal ramification perspective, I would say that there should be an investigation into possible criminal negligence, causing bodily harm or causing death. Now, if I look at to why Detective Helen Grus was charged with misconduct, the whole charge does not make sense. It reads unlike any other previous charge for discreditable conduct. We had evidence from the prosecution witnesses that it is normal to look at the RMS database for investigative or educational or informative purposes. We understood from testimony that it's also normal that police officers don't take notes every time they look at the RMS records. Here, Detective Helen Grus did take notes. I mean, she was being accused of not taking notes, of looking at the RMS for personal reasons. And I just want to say that the timeline is indicative of why someone may speculate that there's other forces at play here, other, maybe I would say, political pressures at play. We've seen political interference in policing. Is that it was literally within 2 weeks of Detective Helen Grus raising the current concern of a tripling.
Sorry about that. We had a bit of a technical glitch, but Bathsheba, please continue with what you were saying.
So from the days that Detective Helen Grus raised the concern of the tripling of sudden unexpected deaths to the chief of police at the town hall on January the 13th, that's when I believe that rumors were generated and circulated by some police officers within the unit that Detective Grus was working in and her superiors, alleging that she had use the RMS records database for personal reasons, and that she had printed off a coroner report. That culminated in a suspension 2 weeks later after she raised those public safety concerns. So 2 weeks later, Detective Helen Grus is suspended with the allegation of insubordination. An insubordination allegation was based on breaching an order. So there's an order within the Ottawa Police Service, as with many police service, to not use records management system for personal reasons. Detective Helen Grus said, I'm not using it for personal reasons. There's a public safety concern here. And throughout her testimony, she says, I was fulfilling my oath to protect the public and to preserve life. Now, if we fast forward past the time of the protests in Ottawa, we go to March of 2022. And again, someone within the chain of command or superiors of SACA and within Ottawa Police Service leaked confidential police information to CBC. And those same vile rumors were transmitted to CBC. Those rumors being that Detective Grus contacted coroners, that she called parents to ask about COVID-19 vaccination status, that she was using the database for personal reasons, that she committed privacy breaches. None of this is true. And I want to say none of this is true, certainly at that time, because the only iota of truth is that she did call the father of one of the babies, but no one knew at that time. So it was literally a pack of lies. And this is what led to the discreditable conduct charge. When I say this is because those rumors were then published in two newspaper articles, two CBC articles on March 28th and March 31st of 2022. And then on May 12th of 2022, when Detective Helen Grus was being interviewed for the insubordination allegation, the very first thing the investigator said to her was, you are now facing a charge of discreditable conduct for what was published in the CBC articles. And I want to make it clear again that Detective Helen Grus never spoke to CBC, that somebody or some police officers within Ottawa Police Service leaked confidential information and also lied about what they believed Detective Helen Grus was doing, or they were fabricating a story of what she was doing, because she certainly never contacted the coroners. And we see the evidence on the record shows that the lead investigator for the insubordination allegation was reaching desperately out to the coroners saying, were you contacted to ask, and ask these questions, and were you contacted for reports? And all of them said no. We never got to the bottom of who generated these rumors. We're just creating a patchwork here, but it's difficult to answer in a nutshell, really, the question of why is Detective Helen Grus being charged, or why was she charged with discreditable conduct? I mean, we're told it's because of the CBC newspapers, but you got to backtrack to what happened. And what happened is that she raised public safety concerns of a tripling of sudden infant deaths. And if we fast forward to now, 2025, she was right to have those concerns, and still nothing is being done by the Ottawa Police Service to investigate possible criminal negligence. And when I say that, it's because there is government information, government records out there that show that they knew that these COVID-19 vaccines had ended, that when they were given to pregnant or breastfeeding women, that babies died. They were not safe.
So, to me, just hearing the story, and I think a lot of people feel this way as well, it seems like Detective Grus is being punished for asking some inconvenient questions. And, as you pointed out in the story, it's not like, this basically, what she did was just sort of touch the surface of this issue. It wasn't like she was in any kind of protracted investigation. It was sort of raising a couple of questions, asking a couple of questions, looking at records in the course of her service. And then, they brought the hammer down on her. So, it seems to me like, again, they don't like the political implications of her questions. They think she's looking into areas where she shouldn't be. But I mean, there shouldn't be politics in the police service, right? It should be about the public interest. It should be, detectives should be able to investigate links that may exist or may not exist, but they should be able to ask questions. Do you agree, Bathsheba?
Oh, absolutely. I think that we see this pattern of behavior since the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccinations. Whenever there was a doctor or nurse who asked questions, who raised ethical concerns, uh, uh, their own disciplinary bodies were used against them to shut them down, to stop any probing into possible links between COVID-19 vaccinations and harm and death. And here we have the only case in Canada and possibly the world where a police officer who was working in a unit uh, with the role of investigating sudden unexpected baby deaths look into a trend because her whole unit was alive to the fact that there were tripling of sudden infant deaths in between 2021 and 2022, and she was shut down immediately simply for just the probative stage. Now they've accused her, when I say they, the hearing officer in the decision of discreditable conduct, so he finds her guilty, and there's a total misapprehension of evidence. He states that she's guilty of conducting a criminal investigation. She was not doing a criminal investigation. She had not formed any conclusions. There was not enough information to hand. All that was to hand was the fact that there'd been a tripling of sudden infant deaths, that babies died in circumstances that she's never been seen before, and she raised that concern to the chief of police. Within 2 weeks, she was suspended. And the decision also states exactly what you said there, Derek, is that police officers are not allowed to investigate without permission from their executive when looking into accountability or criminal liability of public officials. Now, that to me, as a lawyer, as somebody who's worked in the rule of law around the world, is terrifying. The message that this decision delivers to Canadians is that police officers are not allowed to investigate our government for criminal liability. That means that the government are above the law and that the police are being directed by the government instead of being operationally independent to ensure that we have rule of law in Canada.
Well, that's a great way to close that legal section. Helen, can you just tell me a little bit about the personal impact these charges and investigations have had on you? Since 2022, you've been going through this process. There really isn't an end in sight. You've been found guilty of misconduct. You have a penalty hearing that has sort of been partly completed, but still you don't know when that's going to end. So, this is going on and on and on. I'm sure this has been tremendously costly, emotionally, financially, and otherwise. Can you just give us a little bit of an insight into sort of the impact this has had on you this last couple of years?
It has had a tremendous impact. Emotionally, even going back to work, I love the job I do. I love policing. I love helping people. But I do find myself sometimes after a full shift of work driving home, and that's where the political ramifications of this whole tribunal hit me hard when I'm driving home alone, thinking, okay, I had that good feeling that I was able to help people, yet here the service I'm working for is trying to destroy me emotionally, physically, at work, at home. I do think about this, like, number one, I think about the babies and the public safety aspect every day. I see people getting sick continuously to this day. They're not getting answers from the various medical fields that they're trying to get. People are going in with heart issues. They're being told it's in their head. So emotionally, it does have an impact on me because I know there's tests that are not being conducted at various levels. For example, and I do want to speak to this because long COVID and or the COVID vaccine leave spike protein in your system. And that spike, when we get a little bit into the medical side of this is doctors are best to explain this, but in layman's terms, the spike protein causes havoc in the system and it can destroy various tissues. So when somebody dies unexpectedly, in several countries now in the world, they're actually testing that tissue to see if there's spike in it, to see if it's the spike protein that's causing that damage. I don't believe Canadian pathologists are doing that on a regular basis for those unexpected deaths of children, youth, young adults. It's just being written off, some of them. And we heard that in the paper, sad, sudden sudden adult death syndrome. We've never seen that before. So it does weigh on me as a human being, as a mom. I sleep well at night because I know I did the right thing and I would do it again. Because, as Bathsheba mentioned, I took an oath to protect the public, protect life, and preserve peace. And I take it very seriously and to heart. And I will never stop asking questions because that's our job as police officers to ask the questions so we get the answers. We collect evidence so we can present it further and see if there is an issue. Yeah. So has it taken a toll? Yes. But is it stopping me? No.
Well, I really, really appreciate both of you coming on this morning and telling your story. I hope any police officers watching this, I hope any police administrators watching this, I hope they use this time as a time to recommit to the principles of open investigation, of not allowing politics or political correctness to impact their judgment, to impact the decisions that they make. And I hope that many more police officers in Canada have the same position as you, that their job is to protect the public, to ask uncomfortable questions if need be, and to remain committed to their work and committed to the public safety and the public good. So I want to thank both of you guys for being here with us today. We wish you all the best, Helen, in your ongoing legal process, which is taking forever, in my opinion. It's dragging on, and we'll be sure to have both of you on. Yes, absolutely. Go ahead, Bathsheba.
Sorry, because I wanted to just add the ongoing legal process bit is that in September, at the beginning of September, we started the penalty hearing. So the decision of guilt was in March 25th of 2025, and then September 3rd to 5th were the dates reserved for the penalty hearing. And we heard from the prosecution that they're asking for a demotion of 24 months, which has a significant pay implications and promotion implications for Detective Helen Grus. It's actually quite punitive. And we submitted affidavits from the public with regards to the public interest component of the penalty factors. There are 13 main penalty factors to consider: aggravating, mitigating, and public interest is the first one. And it is asking the question, what kind of penalty should be given to this police officer for their misconduct, so that it maintains public confidence in policing. Well, I took the position, well, we need to hear from the community. Public interest is in the public interest. I just too often hear sort of the state telling the public what's in the public interest. It's a public to tell the state what's in their interest. It's a public to tell the Ottawa Police Service what they expect in terms of a penalty. And so the affidavits clearly state that Detective Helen Grus was doing the right thing. She should not be penalized. And in fact, some retired police officers wrote in their affidavits that they believe that Detective Helen Grus should be assigned to investigate as to the possible links between COVID-19 vaccinations and these sudden unexpected baby deaths. Affidavit that we put in by Natasha, government records revealed that the government in 2021, so there was a federal vaccine surveillance group, were aware that there were an increase in miscarriages, and in particular, Manitoba asked for an oversight committee specific to pregnant and breastfeeding women in the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccines. The federal group said, yeah, we'll do that. And they never did it. No oversight, no monitoring. It was a complete eyes shut. We won't look at this. Meanwhile, pregnant and breastfeeding women are being told the COVID-19 vaccinations are safe. They're being administered the vaccines. And I've heard many stories of mothers and fathers losing their babies thereafter, after they've taken the COVID-19 vaccinations. And the government did nothing, and they knew, we have those records, and that's what we're trying to have admitted onto the record in an affidavit. We have those government records that show that they knew. And I just want to add as a final point, it's not just about the babies. They also knew that children died after the Pfizer vaccine, and they still told families that their children should take the COVID-19 vaccine.
Well, that's some very interesting information, Bathsheba. Thank you for sharing that. I want to ask you guys to come on again at some point, share any updates that occur in this hearing. We do wish you all the best. Bathsheba, thank you so much for representing Helen in this case. Helen, any final words for us as we close today?
Well, I'm a person of faith. I have a strong faith in God. I do ask people to pray for our country, pray for our officers, even our politicians, to do the right thing. And I thank people for the support. I thank you for having us on, Mr. Sloan. And I think if we just stay on course, stay lawful, justful, professional, we're gonna get there one day. We're gonna get to the bottom of all this. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Detective Grus. And you know, I believe that there are many people, you know, of conviction and of moral courage that, you know, work in our police services, work in various government levels. And, you know, I pray as you do that truth will come out and that anything that is being hidden will be revealed. So thank you both for joining me today. God bless you both in this fight that you're in. And we hope to hear from you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you so much.